I'm sitting at a table with a psychic when I'm 22 years old on Hawthorne Boulevard, getting my palm read, and she says, "You don't get along with your mom. That's true. You should talk to your dad more often." I cannot talk to him more often because he's dead. Maybe the man you think is your father is dead, but your real father is very much alive. And then I was in shock, and time stopped. And then everything else she said washed over me, and I left, and I was in this weird bubble haze because it felt weird. And all these I'm not very good at guessing the end of movies. So all the twists and turns of my entire childhood, of feeling like people have been keeping secrets from me my whole life, and everyone in my family no one looked like me, and everyone was always weird. When my dad came up, and my mom would be like, it all started to make, I started to think, this woman my friend found on the back of the Willamette Week, but what if it's true? I haven't seen a gravestone. And so I thought about it, and I was like, what does that mean for me if it's true? I don't even know what that means, to be like, oh, your whole family was lying to you for your whole life. But I mustered the courage, and I asked my sister a year later. I was like, is my dad really dead? And she said, no. Oh my God, we knew you'd figure it out eventually. He's alive, I'm so sorry. Don't hate me. And I was like, I don't hate you. Maybe I hate mom, I don't know. So I tried to ask my family members. I asked my uncle, do you know about my dad? Do you know the story? I found out he's alive. And he was like, I don't know who your dad was, I don't know. And my sisters were like, he's lying to you. He was friends with your dad. And so everyone in the family, except for my sisters, started lying to me systematically, even though I was an adult. And I knew, and I felt so alienated, and I thought about what it felt like to be a kid and have everyone around me kind of like hush up about something, and you can feel it when you're a kid and you don't understand, and finding out this information through my entire childhood and my entire idea of what I thought I knew, into hijinks, and made me feel really weird and alone and stranded/left behind. So, thank you. So, I hadn't said anything to my mom because my mom had kept this secret. She was like a little crazy about it. And I didn't think she was I felt like I had to do everything myself. I had to find out the secret on my own. I had to ask the family on my own. And then finally I said, Mom, I know about this thing. And she said, well, I was just trying to protect you because he abandoned you, your dad. And I just knew that wasn't true because my sisters had told me, your mom kicked him out. And so she was like, he abandoned you. I'm the best mom. You're welcome. And I felt more alone. I felt like I can't rely on my mom. I can't rely on my history. I can't rely on anything that I know. I can rely on my sisters. That's it. I felt, I just felt fucked up. And my way of processing things as a kid and as an adult was through art. That's how I kind of metabolize hard things and deal with the world. And so I made a book about it. And I was drawing the book because I'm a cartoonist. So I was spending like 8 hours a day just drawing my worst moments from my childhood of feeling alone and isolated and whatever. And towards the end of it, people kept asking me, have you found your dad? Have you found your dad's alive? Have you found your dad? And I was like, no, because I was afraid to, because my family said he's a con man, he's a terrible person. You don't want to meet him. You wouldn't even want to meet him anyway. And I would Google him, and his name was really common. But towards the end of the book process, my editor and everyone had said, like, have you met your dad? And so I Googled him, and then I put some money in a detective website, and his name came up, attached to my mom. But then attached to some other lady and some other guys, and I was like, oh, I heard that maybe I had brothers, I don't know. So then I went on Facebook, and I Googled one of the guys, and he was there. He's like a super handsome guy, looks like he should be on reality TV. And I wrote him, and I said, this might be weird, but I think that maybe we have the same dad. I couldn't even say I'm your sister. I think we maybe have the same dad. This guy, here's his name. My mom told me he was dead my whole life. I found it from a psychic. Woohoo, isn't that weird? Anyway, it's probably hard for you to talk about because he's like such a scumbag, but hi. And I was so nervous. And then he wrote back and he was like, yeah, actually, I've heard about you. Dad said he was really sad and heartbroken that your mom was going to tell you he was dead. And also, I forgot to tell you guys, my mom changed my last name when I was like in second grade. Inexplicably, she changed my last name. So George's was not my dad's last name. So this guy says, yeah, Dad knew about this. And also, Yeah, he was really heartbroken about that, and he's not a con man at all. Like, he coached my football team. He was like the Boy Scout dude. He was a great dad, and sorry. And I was like, oh, this guy must be really tore up about it because I'm sure the dad like bolted. So I wrote him back, and I was like, this might be weird too, but do you have any contact with him? Do you know how I could get in touch with him? And he said, oh, well, we lost him last year. So I'm so sorry you missed meeting him by a year. He had a heart attack. But he kept your baby picture in his wallet until the day he died. And I was like, oh, I was crushed. I just was, the weight of what my mom had done just like swung back and hit me. And I was like, oh, and I felt more kind of alone than ever. I was like, well, I have my Portland, chosen family. I have my dog and, all that stuff. And I have my art, which is like isolating but also comforting. And I was like, oh, okay, well, thanks for telling me about your dad. And he said, well, he's your dad too, And I think that you'd really like to learn about him because you guys have a lot in common. And so my sister helped me go meet this guy and his family, my brother, and my sister and my dad's widow. And it was vulnerable because I felt like I was like this orphan being like, hi, will you be my family? Like, this. And and I was like, why do I have to be the adult in every situation where I have to go find these people and this and that? And they were happy about my book, and they were like, this is cool, you do a comic. And I met them, and it was great that we went to Cracker Barrel together because I live in Texas, which is also known as vegan hell, and I'm vegan. And anyway, so that they were really nice, and they were like, your dad, he had all these patents, including one for a silencer he made out of a PVC pipe. He loved guns, and I was like, oh, awesome. And then, but I went home, and I still felt isolated from my mom and from everyone that had lied to me. And also, it's a lot to chew on having a new family. And my book came out, and I got a Facebook message one day from someone who said, hey, I'm your aunt, I think. My mom, your grandma, found your book, and we put two and two together, and she wanted me to write to you. We've been looking for you your whole life. And every time through the 80s and 90s that we would go traveling and we would stay in a hotel, she would make us get the white pages from the local hotel or wherever, local phone booth, and look up your mom's name to see if she was in there so we could try to find you. And my I was like, what? And I met my grandma, and she said, yeah, when you were 5, I called on the phone, and your mom said I could only talk to you and hear your voice one last time if I promised not to tell you who I was. And I was like, oh my God. And she said, you know what? You have a lot of family, and they're all really excited to meet you. And so that's my story. And it turned out that, my art, my way of like processing the world and processing this isolation I felt for my family was the thing that had built a bridge between me and these people I had never met. And so now I have a family that's like bigger than I could ever have believed. So thank you.